Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending our Caregiver Lunch and Learn event sponsored by Alpha Delta Omega Chapter, Pi Nu Omega Chapter, and Nu Kappa Omega Chapter here in Nashville, Tennessee, Clarksville, and Murfreesboro, Tennessee. We are the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and today is our International Caregiver Impact Day. My name is Janine Davis, and I am the program chairman and vice president with Alpha Delta Omega Chapter. And I want to introduce you to a couple of our participants and my fellow program chairmen who helped to put this joint community gathering together. We have Miss Julia Sneed. She is a registered nurse, the Jurisdiction 15 Medicare Administrative Contract Director of Medical Review and Operations in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And then we also have Dr. Alexis Heaston, who is the Assistant Professor of Public Health, Health Admin, and Health Sciences at Tennessee State University. And we will have some really great speakers this afternoon to share with you various resources and information and support on being a caregiver. So now I'm going to turn it over to Miss Julia Sneed.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Julia Steed. I am program chair for Pi Nu Omega chapter in Women's Health Committee, and I want to give you a little bit of information about the purpose of our event. The purpose of our event this afternoon is to highlight and celebrate the caregivers in our chapters, our personal lives, and our communities. These special individuals sacrifice so much of themselves to help others stay on top of their healthcare and personal needs. Caregivers are the essential workers. They were essential before COVID, they are essential during COVID, and they will definitely remain essential after COVID is behind us. This Lunch and Learn was organized to share information, insight, advice, and encouragement to our special caregivers and others who wish to provide support for them. We hope to provide an opportunity to learn from others who face the same challenges and will benefit from this.
Alexis, I think you're muted.
Good afternoon. I have the privilege of introducing our speaker for today. Our speaker for today is Ms. Melissa Eldridge, a resident of Clarksville, Tennessee. She is a United States Air Force veteran, and she is the current owner of 101 Care Matters, which provides home health care needs for disabled seniors and veterans in Montgomery County. Ms. Eldridge currently serves on the Personnel Support Service Agency Advisory Committee for the Tennessee Association of Healthcare, the Clarksville Advisory Board of Directors for the Tennessee Department of Human Services Division of Rehabilitation, and she is a steward pro tem at St. Paul AME Church, Oakwood, Tennessee. Miss Melissa Eldridge.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me and having me as your speaker for this afternoon. Caregiving is a very role that we see is increasing nowadays. Just to let you know, I have been in caregiving business for 4 years now, and prior to that, I did 24 years of physical therapy with individuals here in 3 different counties in this region. Caregiving, I chose to go into that field because I noticed when I was going into people's homes that lived alone, a lot of time they were not thriving, and they were not thriving because of the lack of companionship as well as the lack of nutrition that they were able to get up and prepare for themselves. So in 2016, I decided that I would start this business. Caregiving can be a very burdensome role. you all may have older relatives in your family. You will notice that as they age, that they begin to require more assistance from either yourself or someone in the community. And so those things can be small things such as going to buy their groceries, or cooking for them, or cleaning the house, doing their laundry, or providing transportation for them. It can also include having to assist that person with getting a shower or getting dressed each and every day. And you may also have to begin to oversee their prescriptions. They may not remember how to organize those medications. And so you have to come in and begin to assist them with those types of things, arranging their medical appointments, as well as driving them to the doctor, and even discussing with the doctor, depending on what their health condition may be. You may have to talk to the doctor about those things. And when it begins to include cognitive issues, at those moments, those are the times that you may even have to take an extra step to get power of attorney of their medical or over their financials in order to maintain their quality of life. You know.
Hold on. Okay.
Was that a question? Okay. You know, and that's something with in the Black community that we don't tend to kind of take charge and step up and actually start those processes. But the more that I am in the field and I see the needs of individuals, and you know, a person's health can go down so quickly that you may not have time to do those things, those legalities, while they're still lucid and everything. But at the point in time that you see that they are really requiring more and more assistance, then that's the time to call the family together and actually sit down. And if there are several children, just talking about what your role is going to be as far as the care of your loved one. And I urge everyone to do that, because I've seen some very ugly situations out here just at the snap of a finger, and a person's health goes down. You know, sometimes they may just need you to come and sit with them. I remember going to see a lady who was 96 years old for physical therapy, who lived alone. And she really didn't feel like getting up every day because there was nothing for her to do. And then the family decided that they were going to hire the next door neighbor to just come and at least have breakfast with her. And so that lady, she began to really thrive, because she said, wow, breakfast tastes better when there's someone present to eat breakfast with you. So it's things like that that we have to keep into consideration. I have a father who's 91 years old, and thank God he gets around pretty well, but I do have to go into the house at least once a week to wash his clothes, change the linen on his bed, and just make sure that he is well taken care of. And thankfully, I have a brother who lives with him that sees to it that he is fed on a daily basis. So I thank God for that, because the more hands on deck, the less of a burden important it can be for you. My company that I have, one-on-one care match, it actually, we have a contract with VA, and so we're able to service those veterans with VA, recommending that those individuals get a certain amount of hours a week, and then they pay for those. Also, if you have older family members who might be eligible for Medicaid or TennCare, or maybe they're on, I think it's called Blue Care, the Choices program through United Health. You know, there's agencies, and also there's insurance companies now, like Cigna Health Springs, Cigna. Some of the Medicare insurance companies are now offering caregiver services. So I advise that if any of you have relatives or loved ones who are needing some assistance, and maybe they fall within that financial scope, that you reach out to those agencies. And even if you're not sure if they have it or not, still reach out to those agencies and to their Medicare or Medicaid insurance companies and ask if that is a amenity that they allow their members to have. So there's programs out there. You can also go through the Council of Aging and Disability, but there are out there now, and it's just a matter of taking the time to call those numbers for their insurances. And like I said, if you have any relatives who are veterans, as long as they are going to be seen by a veteran doctor at least one time a year, that's all it takes, then they can ask that physician at VA to submit the recommendation to the social worker for the services to be established. So I'm trying to think of anything else that I could tell you all. I think that's about it. Do you all have any questions for me that I may not have covered?
Melissa, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that there are a few people that are calling, that are on the call or listening, that are caregivers to people who are not elders. Are there any services or resources that you know of for dependent people who are underage, children, or younger than our older folks?
They have a program called, I want to say F, and I'm really trying to, they have programs out there. I know the ECF program, it was more for, say, if you had a young adult who may have some developmental challenges, but actually could work a job, then they have such programs as those. I have kind of shied away from those programs, but I do have some more owners who do participate in those programs that the state has, but I don't participate in those.
Do we have any other questions for Melissa?
And just to add, Julia, I do know they have been talking about some people, they'll base it on their finances, and some people have been kind of falling in the cracks between what qualified them, and maybe they made just a few dollars more that disqualified them. And so I'm not sure when that program is going to start, but they have been talking about a pot of money that has been building here in Tennessee, that if you had disabled children or disabled individuals who had not, who at one time were not able to qualify, that they could possibly qualify now with this new program that they have.
Thank you. I'll ask another
Yes,
question.
ma'am. Okay.
Okay, my other question is, I heard you say some things, just to kind of alleviate the burden on the caregiver. I heard you say, get more people involved in your lives, all hands on deck. I heard that. Obviously using being aware of your community resources and, engaging with them. Can you provide any other recommendations for our caregivers to relieve their own stress, or just tips and tricks that you have come to know so that they can thrive and continue to be of service?
I will tell you, as far as for a caregiver, self-care is very important. I would suggest that as a caregiver, that they will find time for themselves, whether it be to just go and just steal away and take a walk, or to go and get pampered, or just treat yourself. But self-care is very important, because what we're finding is that because of the stress and the burden that's been put on one caregiver who's trying to do it all by themselves, they too are starting to deteriorate. And I've known several who say that they were caring for their husband or a wife who had a stroke. Well, because of the stress and the wear and tear on their bodies, and because they don't have anyone else that will come in and assist with them, they too themselves have ended up having strokes or just deteriorated physically. They couldn't care for the person that they were taking care of. So it's very important that if you have a church community, or just in your local community, or if there's other family members that you can incorporate into that individual's care, you need to do that. You need to do that.
Are there any other questions for Melissa? Melissa, again, will you share with us your business information for your care company?
Okay. My business is One on One Care Matters. We're located in Clarksville, Tennessee, and we service the Montgomery County area. We provide, basically, we can provide 24-hour services for individuals. We do require a minimum of 3 hours when we do come into the home, because that way it gives the caregiver plenty of time to take care of the client, prepare them a meal, and we usually come in and we'll assist them with laundry, some light housekeeping tasks. We can even run errands for them, and as well as transport them to and from any appointments that they may have.
All right. Well, thank
May I
you.
ask one question?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry for just bringing it in. I'm wondering, Ms. Eldridge, do you know of any groups, self-help groups where caregivers can meet in an informal way during the day or evening to talk about some of the things that they're experiencing?
You know, before COVID came along, I know, say like Brookdale, we have a geriatric, well, it's more like a nursing home for cognitively challenged patients. They would periodically have like a caregiver meet, so that it's more or less like a support group. And so the hospital at one time, they were also doing the same thing. And so I know for sure that the local nursing homes were having support groups, and then the hospitals, they would have it. But I would also think that the Council of Aging and Disability, that they would more or less have some things like that as well. And then I'll tell you somebody else, AARP. They have good resources on caregiver.
Thank you.
Melissa, we did put your information in the chat box. Can you give us a phone number really quickly?
Oh, yes, ma'am. It's 931-542-6944.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
And also, let me just say this. If you all have a relative who is, you notice that physically and mentally they're starting to decline, and they're starting to require more assistance, then make an appointment with that individual's doctor and get them to begin to document what's going on with your loved one, so that as things begin to decline, then you have the paper trail for it. And then also that will, his letter will help to support the funding from the insurance company as well.
Really good information to know. Do we have any final questions before we move to our next speakers? Okay, Miss Mary, I'm gonna ask you to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, first of all, I'd like to thank you for coming. And my question is, do the caregivers have keys to the people's houses?
Only if they tell us where they have hid it. Some children will tell us where they've hidden keys and things like that. Normally, we don't, and I'm a stickler for that, because I don't want to be a thing. And so, but for some, we do know where there's a hidden key, but we don't generally carry keys around to their homes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And I'll say, if we arrive and for some reason we can't get in, and we call and we don't get an answer, or we call that emergency contact person and they say, well, I haven't heard from them either, but what we would do is have the police to come to do a welfare check.
That's good to know. Are there any additional questions? This is good conversation.
Miss Melissa, I have a question. Do you all come out to Sumner County, or is that too far?
Yes,
Ma'am?
no, ma'am. We only stay in Montgomery.
Montgomery County?
Montgomery County. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, we are definitely appreciative, Miss Melissa, for you coming on and sharing with us, because this was a collaborative effort with 3 chapters in Nashville, Murfreesboro, and Clarksville. We wanted to have representation of all of those communities. So we are glad to know that you are serving the Montgomery County well. And so we are willing to share your information and to let other people we know that live in the area about the services you provide. I will say too, just a plug, that Alpha Delta Omega does have a Black-owned business directory called our Green Book, and it is on our website. And so we will add your business information to our Green Book so that people are
Thank
able
you.
to
I
access
appreciate that.
it. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And next we will hear from our respective members in our chapters who are caregivers, and hear from them on their experiences and any additional resources that they have to share. So I'll ask now, Alexis will introduce those speakers next.
Our next speaker is Miss Francine Gilmer. She is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Delta Omega chapter. She's a former college administrator. Currently, she serves as the executive director for Christian County Literacy Council. Miss Francine Gilmer.
Thank you, Miss Alexis, and hello to everyone. It's a joy to be here, and it's a joy to be able to share this particular experience as a caregiver. I will just abbreviate all the details and get to the point of saying that this was an unexpected job for me. I was in Lexington, Kentucky, and working, and my mother got sick and had to go to rehab. And it was much like a care facility that we hope we can avoid. And in taking her back to Lexington with me, we shared a house, my house. That was for one. I've never had a roommate since I've been an adult. And so I don't have children. And so to have the responsibility of another human being was quite a change. I don't think I came to the point of it being titled a caregiver, but that's exactly what it was. The changes I had to make were understanding that age plays a major part in how you proceed. Whether you plan it or not, the task is there, and so you have to make the best of it. For me, I wanted to make the best of it because that's where we were. She needed care. And one of the things that I want to leave with you is, as people age, we have to adjust our expectations of them. And if they are indeed, in the 90s, my mother is now 92. We started this when she was 89, 90. But you have to realize that they're not the same people. So the mental deprivation they suffer, it's not of their choosing. Our job as caretakers, and this is all my opinion, and I've learned it just as I've gone from day to day, is that we have to realize it's not the same person. And our patience is the number one thing that you have to develop. It's easy to think that, oh, it's just taking care of another person. It's not. It changes your outlook on what you have to do. As Miss Eldridge just said, you have to take time for yourself as a caregiver. But there are some things that come into play that you may not have expected. If you are a wife, or if you are if you have children, you know that your time is not your own. But for one who has to assume this kind of immediately, It was pretty difficult, actually, because patience is not easy for most of us who are independent, who take charge of our lives, who do what we want to do, go where we want to go, eat what we want to eat. But you now have to be concerned about planning meals, planning when you can get the shopping in, plan when you can literally clean the house. Realizing for me that I moved and sold a house are used to having. But the number one thing as a caregiver when it comes upon you is that you have to make the change. You just have to do it if that's what you've decided to do. I think you have to coordinate with a network of people who understand. It's easy to say, oh, well, if she's eaten, then you can just give her something to eat and go. No, you have to make sure that things are out of her way. You have to make sure that the space that she is occupying is safe. You do things that you just would not normally do. You become very observant. And I think I've alluded to it, but the lack of freedom that you have. It's important to know that you don't have a lot, but you can make the best of what you have. The attitude adjustment, back to that, you have to really realize that, again, time is not your own. They've said that, what is it? Once an adult, twice a child. You don't want to make them feel childlike, but you have to conduct yourself as more of the adult. And you have to, for me, I want to realize that you want to maintain their dignity. They have a lot of pride, particularly this is a 92-year-old former school teacher, and she was in charge of her class. And I think that's something to remember. They are no longer in charge, but when you take away that independence, it kind of makes them feel like they don't have anything. And one of the things that I don't want to do is to make her feel as if it is an imposition, even though it is sometimes. That's an imposition on me that I have to make adjustments for. But you can be grateful for friends who step in and say, look, you go here and I'll come stay. You go do this, I'll come over. People who bring meals to us, it's beautiful. And these are not things that you have to ask for if people realize what you're working with. I think someone else mentioned that they want to, I think my time is about up, but you want to realize that it is a job, sometimes a thankless job, but it's the kind of job that as a caregiver, if you've assumed it, you have to do all kinds of people in the world. Those who have been caretakers, those who are currently caretakers, those who will become caregivers, and those who will need a caregiver. And I want to keep in my mind that I'm learning what to do. I'm learning what not to do. But there are some practical things that I do want to leave with you. Don't hesitate to talk to your elderly parents or people that you may have to take care of later. You want to assess from them what their plans are, because it could be a financial drain for some. It could be a major financial imposition. There are, as Ms. Eldridge said, there are some resources. And one of the things I think as a people we don't do is plan financially. talk to financial advisors, talk to people about insurance policies and what it is they cover, because you will get to that point where you'll have to understand that. You will have to understand medications. You'll have to understand therapies. You'll get into learning a lot of things that you did not think you would have to. It's a major sacrifice. Sometimes it falls to just you. And when it falls to just you, just accept it graciously. God is in control. He knows what he's doing. And I will say that for me, this has happened at a time that I did not really plan. But I can also say that because we're in the situation of a pandemic, I can't imagine being in one city and my mother in another, not knowing what her care would be. So it has turned out to be a blessing that I can do it. But as a caregiver, I can say to others, it is something you have to make adjustments for. So I leave that within my time frame. And if there are questions or time for questions at the end, I'm happy to answer. Thank you for asking me to join you.
Thank you, Francine.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have any questions of Francine at this moment? All right. Well, we will move to our next speaker. And if you do have questions, feel free to put those in the chat box. We're also watching our Facebook live for questions there as well. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Miss Josette White. She is a registered nurse. She is a director for the Jurisdiction 15 Medicare Administrative Contractor of Medical Review Operations in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. She is also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Pi Nu Omega chapter. Ms. White.
Good afternoon, and as the other speakers have shared, thank you for allowing me to share some time with you. This has been very beneficial to me to hear the experiences as well as receive the information from Ms. Eldridge. Again, my name is Josette White, and I can definitely relate to what my soror Francine shared from the caregiving experience. I've had two significant experiences. I am the long distance caregiver for a 96-year-old grandmother who does live in another state. So definitely COVID has posed some challenges with my coordination with my uncle, who is her primary caregiver. I've still navigated traveling down there on a quarterly basis to give him respite relief from care, and over the phone do lots of teleconferences with physicians and him, as well as caregivers that we've had to hire in to help because of the distance and the current limitations. And as Ms. Eldridge shared, some of the support services in reference to that I've received is definitely going to the local aging and disability council and agencies for services. That has been tremendously helpful to us to kind of fill in that gap. To find other resources to help with meals, sitting services, even transportation to appointments that she absolutely has to attend if I cannot get down there to attend those. So definitely, those are some of the resources for support that I've received from that aspect. Also within the last year, I have been caregiver for my husband, who was diagnosed with prostate cancer within the last year, and he's gone through 2 procedures and radiation. And he completed that a couple of months ago. So that was a different experience for me, because I had to approach that very differently as the spouse. And I am a nurse, and I had always been a caregiver professionally, but when you have to personally do that, it definitely, it's a lot different in how you have to approach things. And so what I found was the best support for me in terms of that is I was fortunate enough to be able to connect with other spouses that have been through that same experience. And it meant a lot for me, as someone else shared, to talk to someone else who had been through that. Because there are certain things that, you can talk to friends, you can talk to co-workers, other people, but unless someone has really experienced that themselves, they may not have the insight to share things with you or to relate to what you're going through at the particular time. So that had been tremendously helpful for me to connect with other wives that were supporting their husband through their cancer journey as well. So that was extremely helpful to me. I would also say that it's important to, as was previously mentioned, when people offer you help, accept it if you need it. Um, I think that for a while in both of my caregiving journeys, I wanted to be able to take care of everything myself because that's just what we do. And I think it's important that if someone offers you help, to accept it and be willing to be open to people if they're willing to listen, because sometimes someone, if you just mention something, you'll receive an outpouring of help that you could never expect from people that you wouldn't have expected it from. So be willing to share. A final resource support that I think that is important too as well. There was mentioned other support groups, but if you are employed and your employer offers employee assistance programs, take advantage of that as well. To be able to have someone to talk to that they may not know you and you may want to share things with them, just to kind of maintain that reduced stress level and be able to talk about things. So I think that's important too, to also tap into those resources that you may have available through those types of benefits that you may not be aware of. So again, thank you for allowing me time to share with you all. This has been tremendously beneficial to me, and I appreciate your time, and I'm open for any questions that anyone has for me.
Thank you, Josette. Do we have any questions? I see there's a lot of really good comments in our chat box, but do we have any questions for our two caregiver speakers? We've
Yes, I
also
have.
got some really, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tiffany.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Miss Josette, I heard you state that you have a meal service that you contacted for, I think, your mother. Is there one here closer that we can contact, or do you have a general person, company that we can contact for meal services?
Certainly, what you can do is that if you can go on eldercare.gov, and you can also Google disability and aging services agencies.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I know particularly on eldercare.gov, we were able to just put in our zip code, and that kind of brought up a list of different agencies that were available to us to reach out to, and it told you what services they provided. And for in South Carolina, which is where my grandmother is, we simply just had to make a call to them. Someone came out and they did an assessment. They met with my uncle, and I was on the FaceTime with them, and they talked to us, went through a few questions to make sure that they qualified for the services, and then they started the meals from there.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you, Tiffany. Any other questions? We've gotten some great comments in our chat box of just thanks and gratitude for the transparency and for the necessary comments. We also have a shout out on our Facebook Live to Josette, was such an inspiration, and a shout out also to Francine. Love Francine on our Facebook Live. We do have one question from our Facebook viewers. I'm in a position to have care for my mother from afar as she battles breast cancer. What are some suggestions you can give for me to stay supportive and connected in her care without being overwhelmed? So I'll leave that to Francine and Josette to answer, and Melissa as well is still with us.
I'll be happy to start with an answer because I definitely can relate to the long distance care and support. I'd say definitely typically, I know just from my experience with the cancer as an aspect. Whenever you're diagnosed, you typically have a group of caregivers that's working with you. So if you could connect with the person who's kind of case managing.
Melissa Eldridge, but it's
With the person who's case managing that process, and they'll be able to work with you. And I believe you said it was your mother. I'm sorry, I can't remember which relative, but
Yes, it's her mother.
with your mother, yes, they can connect with you and coordinate appointments so that you're able to telephonically join those appointments. Or if now because of COVID, they're doing a lot of telehealth visits, so you would be able to log in and participate in those ways as well. They also have support group meetings virtually that you could participate in, and just supporting them by attending if they'd like you to attend those appointments with them to help make sure that you're hearing the information and absorbing it, and helping her to ask questions. Just also being supportive from the aspects of asking her personally if there are things that she needs to support her that you could do from afar, in terms of maybe taking over managing specific tasks related to bills, things like that. So those are just some of my suggestions based on my experience.
Okay, thank you. Francine or Melissa, did you all have suggestions?
I think that for me, the choice to do it, to be in the same location was best for me. But prior to that, it was caring from afar, and it had to do with a lot of coordinating. I did not use many outside sources, mostly family and friends who could stop in and do things. But I have found since I
Francine, I think you've frozen.
have been here, one of the things that nurses come in and handle some care, but that's nominal when it comes to things like providing food or just the day-to-day services. But I do know when I was in Lexington, there was an organization, and I want to say it was Caregivers something. And through this agency, they could refer you, and sometimes it was at no cost. I took good advantage of that, but it was something in that city that was available. And I will also say that AARP, while it's a national magazine, they do have very local affiliates, and it's a place to go to find information. And if they don't have it right there, there's probably a resource listed that you can contact for more detail.
Mhm. Yes, we thank you for mentioning that. We did put a link to AARP's caregiver specific page on their website, so that is in the chat box. Melissa, did you have anything to offer of ways in which this viewer can stay supportive and connected with her mom's care without being overwhelmed or overbearing?
Yes, I know for myself, there is a software that we use where the caregivers, if they need to send an immediate concern to me, that they can. Also, within that software, the home care agency, if some of the family members choose to be informed on a daily basis about the care that's going on with their loved one, then there's a way for them to go on, be allowed to go on to that website and look at the communication and the things that may be going on in the house there. I was also going to say, if you're trying to choose, even if you're far or even if you're near, and you decide that you need an agency to assist with the care of your loved one, I really like word of mouth. I think word of mouth is if you know someone who's already receiving similar care of what your loved one requires, then ask them, who do you have? Are you pleased with them? the biggest thing that I think that a home care company should do is always send that same person, or if they have to have more than one caregiver, then make sure that those are the consistent caregivers who are coming into the home, because it can get so frustrating for an individual to always have to kind of educate a different caregiver that comes into the house. And plus, if they're there by themselves, it can overwhelm them to have so many different people coming into their home when they're not used to that. So I would just suggest that you word of mouth, um, and you can always use the internet and what have you, but I really like that word of mouth to really get the transparency of how a company really works.
Thank you, Melissa. Our last question before we move on is coming from a Facebook viewer. It says, during these times, we have an increased concern for immunocompromised patients. What do you do to keep them safe? What are some key questions we should ask when selecting a caregiver?
I would, if I might take that question. The procedure that we have implemented since COVID has come into play is we're wearing masks in the home. We also carry thermometers because the caregivers have to check themselves first before they're to report to work, and then upon arrival, they have to check the client's temperature. And if there's other people in the home, we want to know what their temperature is as well. But we're using sanitary methods, spraying all those commonly touched areas, keeping those wiped down, doorknobs, countertops, and what have you, and just keeping our hands clean and everything. But the key is the mask. Wearing that mask is our protocol from here on out. So,
okay.
And those are the procedures that you need to ensure that companies are following through with.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I wanted to also say that this is a time that we're going to go into the holiday season. And so the caregivers may still be coming, but I think we also should be aware of family and people who are friends. And when people come, I've been in some homes with my neighbor, and the deal is to have all the things that you need at the door, such as extra masks, hand sanitizers, tissue, paper towels, and even cans of spray, so that everybody is aware that this is a priority.
Okay, I think Francine's.
We have to take care of our elderly, but get confused when a lot of people start coming in and out. So finding good help is hard, but when you do, I think it's important that you accommodate their needs so that you don't have to confuse the loved one, particularly the elderly, because there's a fear, and these are things that I've read, some I've experienced, but I do know that they do become confused. There's the whole thing of memory loss. There's the whole thing of becoming paranoid, and things such as even talking about this, the things that we experience, the things that we have to go through. Sometimes our loved ones may feel that it's an extra burden, or that this is something that we're, quote, talking about them. And we don't want, again, to make them feel inferior, but it's important to talk about it. And I think that when you have people that you can trust, that you can talk about it to, that's what you should do. That's the part of the self-care, but it's also helping take care of the loved one. Because when you think about it for yourself, not even being in a situation, when you think people are talking about you, then you begin to conjure up, what did I do? What are they talking about me for? you begin to do that. So just put that in perspective of the elderly or of people who are truly sick. So the care that we expect of our caregivers, whether they are ourselves or whether they are those that we hire or that we employ, we have to realize that we can't talk about everything in front of the loved one.
It's a great point. That is, it's a great point. Well, thank you all. We are coming close to the end of our time. We wanted this to be a very informative session with you. We called it a lunch and learn because we hope that you would enjoy, since we're also in this virtual environment, you would enjoy a little lunch or some snacks and take a break with us to get this information on our International Caregiver Impact Day. We do have a video, a short video that we want to play because each one of our chapters that are that partnered to put this together, we have members who are caregivers that we care about and we want to recognize. So I'll let Julius show us this video, and after which our presidents will give final remarks and we will end our session on today. Thank you.
Thank you again to all of our caregivers.
Thank you. And so now we will ask our chapter presidents, Ms. Tawana Williams, president of Alpha Delta Omega chapter, to provide our first closing remarks. And then after Ms. Tawana, we'll have Ms. Deborah King, president of Pi Nu Omega, and Ms. Sherry Long, president of Nu Kappa Omega.
Thank you so much for this very informative lunch and learn. To be a caregiver, I know takes a lot of sacrifice and dedication, and we salute you. We pray for you every day, and I'm so glad that now we have this opportunity to spotlight you and to show how much we appreciate all of the efforts that you're doing to take care of your loved ones, whether your loved ones are your parents, your friends, or even your children. So thank you for the committee and the chapters that have collaborated today to celebrate and acknowledge our caregivers. Today, we hope that you can take some time for yourself, whether it's today or another day, and keep doing what you're doing. It's definitely appreciated. God will shine on you and bless you for being a blessing to the person you're taking care of.
Ms. Sherry.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I just want to say thank you to this committee for providing such a insightful workshop for our caregivers. Being a caregiver, as I have been a caregiver, I know that it is sometimes become frustrating, sometimes it becomes trying, sometimes it becomes depressing, but then there are times that it can bring joy and it can bring happiness as you know that you're providing a service for a loved one or a friend that needs your help. And I also like to thank our speakers, Melissa Eldridge, Ms. Gilmore, and Ms. White for sharing your information with us. It's something that we don't talk about enough. It's something that we need to hear. And I appreciate all the efforts of these 3 chapters working together. It shows that we can work together collaboratively. We can do more together than we can apart.
Thank you. And I believe, do we have the vice president for Pi Nu Omega still on? I think I saw her on. Ms. Pam, if you're available and want to give some final remarks. Okay. All right, well, we will not belabor it, but I think we all are appreciative of everyone. I want to thank everyone for attending. Our video is recorded. You will be able to watch it on Facebook Live, and we will get something out, the recording for today's session as well. I will send that to my wonderful and beautiful co-chairs to send those out to the respective chapters. So thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.